is you miss every shot that you don't take. So if you're not into the game, just get into there. Whether this be a small property here or just like a 1-bedroom, just get going, you know.
What's up, guys? Today we have special guest Pacifico Dumbrique. He's a partner at Sweep Strategies, which helps people pay down their mortgages very fast. A lot of times, a 30-year mortgage in 7 years or 5 years, record times. Also teaches people about how money works and real estate investing. And part-time flipper on the side, too. So
Yes.
welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, thanks, Daniel, for allowing me to be on here and, you know, reach out to your audience and share my story. So awesome.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like your guys' company, Sweep Strategies. I've heard your name over the years. I've heard a lot of good things about it. How basically how you get someone who's like has a 30-year mortgage and you help them pay it down in 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, from like the onset, it seems like too good to be true. Is it?
Oh, yeah, we get that a lot. I mean, that was our initial strategy. You know, we started in 2009.
Okay.
And we just started teaching people, doing free classes and just say, hey, look, there's another way of doing things.
Yeah,
versus the 30-year fix, which nowadays, if you get a $500,000 mortgage, you're probably saying $600,000, $700,000 of interest.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can cut that to a third of the time, that's huge savings. That's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 sometimes for some people.
So I mean, I would love to just jump right into it. I mean, there's another story where you guys actually bought a house.
Yeah.
You picked it up off the ground and
Yes.
moved it to another lot. We'll get into that later.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah.
just like the whole sweep strategy is really interesting to me. So the whole idea of, is that where the name comes from? Sweeps is like where'd you guys get the name Sweeps from?
Yeah, so if you look up what a sweep account is, right? It's a bank or financial strategy that banks and financial institutions use. It says, where can you leave and park your money to get the highest return?
Okay.
Right? So the way financial institutions use it is they'll leave it in a sweep account. So you transfer your money in there, it's earning however returns versus sitting in a checking or savings. Then it's liquid where when you need the money, you take it out. So that's the real genesis of the word sweep account. But we're saying we probably can get a better return or safer return if you take that same strategy, use a line of credit to pay off a mortgage. Even if your mortgage is at a lower interest rate, let's say 4%, over 30 years, you're going to pay almost 80% of what you owe in interest. So if you can cut that down, it's actually a lot safer return, and you're actually eliminating payments. So there's a lot of nuance to it. But that's the idea.
Like, I'm super interested in this strategy. Let's break it down a little bit. So let's say we buy a house for $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we put down 10%, so we've got a $900,000 loan on this thing, right? So over the course of 30 years, where every month we're paying interest. Let's say we're paying like today's rate stupid is like 7%, right?
Exactly,
So at a 7% interest rate over 30 years, what are we paying in principal, and what are we paying actually in interest?
Okay, so if we're using like a 7% interest rate, so a quick down and dirty calculation that we do is you take that number, you double it, and add a zero.
Okay.
So 7% is about 140%.
Okay.
So I could take out a calculator, but you can imagine if you owe.
So if you owe 900,000 times 140%,
times 140%.
Right? Let's look and see what this is. So
that's very close to what you would pay over 30 years.
Okay. So I mean, I love the quick math.
Yeah.
It's like 900,000 times 140% is 1.2 million in interest.
That's about right.
So 1.26 actually. So $1.3 million in just interest payments over the course of the 30 years.
Exactly.
So let's say you just had the $900,000 cash today. You pay off your entire loan. You save $1.3 million in interest payments.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's huge. So again, if you can cut that down to say a third.
Okay.
So what is a third of that number?
Of 1.3 mil?
Yeah.
Like 300,000-ish, something like that.
A little bit more than 300,000 or 400,000.
Okay.
So you're saving the difference there of almost $800,000 of interest, right?
Wow. So I mean, so if you were to pay off basically a 30-year mortgage in, let's say, 7 years, you basically save almost $1 million in interest by just having like that faster pay down.
Exactly. So that's usually the base strategy that we teach because it's real safe.
Yeah.
Because almost no risk if you think about it, because the interest you're paying is money going to the bank, right? So if you just eliminate or cut that off, right? Then it's more money in your pocket that you can redistribute or reallocate to something that interests you or gets you a higher return.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of math that's going on in this to make this thing happen possible. And like I feel like that it might be complicated to really break down the numbers, but average person, like how hard is it for them to actually implement this strategy?
Oh, it's actually pretty simple. So the two things that we look at when we're trying to do this debt reduction strategy is number one, do you have positive cash flow?
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Meaning, let's say you've got income coming in.
Okay.
You minus all of your expense. Count every single thing that you pay for in a month.
Mortgage, car payments, credit
card, food,
Netflix,
electricity.
Okay. Day, night too.
Yeah, exactly. Private school tuition. A lot of our clients have tuition for that. At the end of the month, are you positive or negative? If you have a positive cash flow, then it works.
Okay.
Now, we do have clients that come in with very little cash flow or break-even cash flow.
Okay.
So then that's where we look at their financial statement and we go, here are some opportunities to increase your cash flow, either debt shifting, changing withholdings, or maybe even budgeting better, or just presenting them the projections gets them motivated to go, I think I can change if I have a goal to reach for.
A lot of times I think when we're looking at our finances and budgeting, it can seem overwhelming and daunting, especially when you're trying to do it yourself, right? You're like, you watch a YouTube video and you're like, okay, like how does this work again? And you're trying to figure it out. But it's always helpful to have like either a buddy or a coach or be part of a peer network where we can kind of work together and just say like, hey, let's make a game plan together. And it just feels like it's a lot more doable when you have somebody to kind of handhold you through the process.
Absolutely. So that's where that financial statement comes into play. And I tell people, look, when you're paying off debt and we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if you're buying property and we're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars, treat the transaction as if you were a business, right? If you were doing an acquisition on a business that's millions of dollars, you would make sure you have all your finances in order.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. Yeah. So before we implement anything, we look at their financial statement, we look at the financial health. We find out what their financial acumen is, and we fill the gaps and say, you need to learn about interest. You need to learn about taxes.
So, I mean, when you guys are getting students who are coming into your program, there's like a wide range of, I guess, people who are very experienced with finances and people maybe who have no absolutely nothing about finances.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we feel like financial education is lacking in our education system. I mean, I grew up in public school, right?
Okay.
Went to public school my whole life.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Campbell High School.
Okay, Preston, West Side.
There we go. Grew up in Ever Beach my whole life. And then went to UH. So, I got my business degree there. And then I was like, when I got into the world, I was just taken aback because I'm like, I don't know what taxes are. I don't know what interest is.
This is one thing that I wish that we taught in our schools. Yes. Like just basic finance, like how to budget, how to get your credit score, how to use credit cards, how to pay a mortgage. There's so many like just basic skills like financial education that is like, it makes so much sense to just have like one semester on like either high school, middle school, or college just dedicated to just personal finance, But it's sad that we don't have this, but now we have to go to like outside high schools into maybe like a program like yours where we actually can learn some of this stuff.
It's amazing, right? And actually at one point I actually created a class for like more like teenagers.
Okay.
And I created this class called Financial Foundations.
Okay.
Here is what credit means. Here's what a loan means. Here's how to write a check. Things I had to learn my own. I
feel like it would be really fun to just go into school and just like say, hey, Mr. Principal, I'd like to offer this class to students. And then like one semester or something, just go over like the basic finances, like exactly what you're saying, like how to buy a house, how to buy a car, how to take care of your credit. Here's how like basic budgeting and income and rent. Here's how to write checks, etc. Like balance your checkbooks, So
it's lacking, and that's where we want to fill that gap. And what's great about Sweep is that we get feedback from our clients, and we say, what do you guys want to learn? Tell us, we'll go find the resource, and we'll bring that education to you folks.
So what makes like a good student or a bad student at Sweep Strategies?
I usually find that a good student that we're working with is someone that's willing to learn, open to new ideas, and really have a goals, set, right? Yeah. And they're able to tell us what they want to do in 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. We hear that a lot, right? But what's great with the program now is we're creating what's called a cash flow roadmap.
Okay, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a roadmap. It's like your GPS to your financial freedom.
Yeah.
And along the way, there's certain benchmarks, right, that we want to achieve. So number one is debt payoff, right? Understanding credit, understanding all that. Number two would be real estate. Number 3 would be the benefits of having a business for tax savings. And then retirement. And then the last part would be like asset protection.
I love that. I feel like it's very simplified as far as just like when you say like a roadmap, right? A lot of times it's finances in general can be so overwhelming, but when you have like a clear, simplified roadmap with like key waypoints, now there's a way for you to kind of like navigate this, and you feel like whenever it feels like impossible, you lose motivation. Like, you know, it's like if it's so far out there, it's like I feel like I can't do it. But as long as there's a game plan in place and there's steps that I feel like I can personally reach, this is the point where I feel more motivated. I'm more inclined to take action with the steps.
Yeah, and the reason I like the roadmap, right, metaphor is that it's like when I'm driving home and then there's traffic on the H1 or there's an accident. What does Waze tell me to do? It says, hey, take this side street. Be flexible, be able to pivot. There's more ways to get to your destination. So life happens, COVID, right? Unemployment, inflation, high interest rates, taxes, government, war. We got to be able to pivot. And if we don't know how to pivot, then we end up just throwing hands up in the air and going, okay, we're just being reactive, right?
And the thing too is like everybody has a different situation, whether it's how much money they make, how much expenses they have, how much debt they have, how much knowledge or resources and connections. And so your roadmap really has to be tailored to you as a specific individual, right? So like your needs, your goals, your wants, and also like your resources that you have, whether it's time, money, or relationships.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so what we've done recently now is just create a variety of different classes, right? And stuff on real estate, tax, business, debt. And people will come in, check it out, and then we always say, look, there's great information today, right? Information is everywhere. At the drop of, you just type something in your phone, you can get the answer immediately. But how does that information pertain to you? That's where sitting down one-on-one, right? Talking through your risk tolerance, right? Talking through what's holding you back and what resources you need to be successful. And that's where the conversation starts.
So give us someone who's like your star student who basically like took the 2 courses and like crushed it out, like made everything out of the water. Like you have a name you can drop, or?
Yeah, I'll just give you his first name. His name is Justin. And he was a public school teacher.
Okay, solid.
And he actually had somewhat of a finance background. He used to work as a mortgage broker.
Okay.
So he understood loans.
So he was a school teacher for like 9 to 5, but he moonlighted as a mortgage broker on the side.
Yeah, something like that. Or I think he was a mortgage broker at the beginning, and then he transitioned to become a teacher. Okay. But he knows loans and mortgages. And then he came to one of our free classes, learned about the mortgage pay up, and said, hey, I've been in the industry, but I never learned this, which is interesting, right? So that you're in the industry of loans, but you're not learning how to pay off loans.
You know what I find too is like a lot of guys who are like in a specific industry, like let's say a mortgage broker or real estate agent, is like you're taught like just the basics of like A to B, just like you're on like the simplest transactions.
Yes.
But there's so much exterior knowledge and things where you can actually like do so much more than just like the A to B, right? There's like A to C, A to F, A to J to B. And there's so many things that you learn outside of like just your regular W-2 profession that can be so beneficial, but it's not taught by like the normal like corporate world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I get sometimes I get into that zone as well, right? Because I'm so focused on real estate that sometimes I miss out on learning about other opportunities. But I think it's just human nature. You know what I mean? So
Justin, so he came to you guys, whatever his situation. What did he do well, and what did he do like that helped him to get supercharged?
What's good about him is he was open-minded.
Okay.
He said, hey, I got some background in this, but there's something I learned in that presentation that I never learned about. So we sat down, we looked at his numbers, and we came up and we came up with a plan and said you could pay this mortgage off. He has one mortgage and one property in, let's say, 10 years, right?
Okay.
But he also has some student loans. So we said in the same plan, we're going to knock out your student loans first, knock out your car loan too, and then we'll start focusing on the mortgage. So we started slow, helped him get the financing, like the line of credit. He started paying it down. And then once we started focusing on the mortgage, we were able to pay that down, build a lot of equity in there. But along the way, we started building different classes. They would say, hey, come to attend this real estate investing class or come attend this tax strategy class. And as he started learning, he goes, how can I start implementing that, right? Then we got down to the fact that he lives in, let's say, a 3-bedroom house, but his family was growing. And he said, I want to buy this 4-bedroom house now. So we designed a way to pull the equity out of his first house, keep it, and then buy his second house. So he was able to accomplish one goal, get into the second house, and then he was able to make the first house a rental.
Yeah, I love that. So he's kind of building his like future retirement, but it's also his net worth is growing because his original house was like appreciating. There's a renter paying down mortgage. I don't know if it's cash flow positive or negative over there, but then now he has this new house where he's also appreciating and paying down that mortgage. And so like there's like a lot of that's going on without him like really actually like working to earn that extra net worth or the extra income.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're right. So we got the concept of OPM right into his brain. Other people's money.
What's OPM?
So other people's money. So I look at it at multiple levels, right? If you're using the bank's money to buy a house, you're using the bank's money, other people's money. But now when he transitioned that first property to a rental, the tenant is now paying him. So that's other people's money as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's got OPM paying for his initial OPM, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, as he was learning this, we said, hey, let's create an LLC. Let's start saving on taxes. So we have a tax firm that we work with that specializes in real estate investors and business owners. And so he was able to decrease his tax liability as well. And so both properties were just appreciating at the same time, right? So that was like phase one.
Okay.
Right? Goal 1, get into a bigger house. Goal 2, get into a rental. Goal 3, start a real estate investing business. And then we started sprinkling on different ideas, and we started analyzing that the return on equity on his first property wasn't as great. And so we started showing them, look, there's out-of-state properties that you could do, which you can get either 7 to 10% return, versus you might be getting like a 1% return, right?
On the cash on cash, you mean?
Cash on cash return, or return on equity, whatever you want to call it. Different metrics that we were showing him. And, we started introducing him to the network partners that do out-of-state rentals. Okay. So the numbers made sense. We had multiple meetings, and we said, look, let's do a 1031 exchange of the first property into, he's got like, probably 4 or 5 doors or something like that in the first 1031 exchange.
So the thing about Hawaii is cool is like our houses are so expensive, like that usually when you sell this, you can buy like 5 houses like in the Midwest or like a commercial building, right? So like just a lot of times we think of like Hawaii as like a negative because it's so expensive, but the positive side is once you own something, it's like you own like 5, you're buying like 5 houses at once, like in the Midwest or wherever it is that you guys are buying these other rentals.
Yeah. So that's exactly what he did. He bought in the Midwest where we're getting at least 7 to 10% return. And so now he's actually built a relationship there, and he started building his own real estate connection there. So it jump-started his own business. At the same time, he's saving more on taxes because he's working with our tax firm. And then he did a couple like BRRRR strategies as well, right? Got him into some properties that needed some rehab, but he put it in and the value went up. And so now, fast forward, I've probably been working with him for over like 8 years already. He's at the point now, he's like, okay, I got these maybe C+ properties, right? Now he's like, we started showing, hey, we have a connection. We have a new resource for these AB properties. They're actually new build property duplexes. So I said, look, if you now sell these, you can use that for the down payment, and I'll get into these multifamily houses. So now that he's now into multifamily, so he's actually in our new build program. It's about a 6 to 8 month build.
I feel like that's like the common theme of most investors. When you first start in, you start with the C class just because the cash flow is a little higher and it's like a lot easier to get into, right? The price points are lower. Then after a while, you're like, hey, like I have too many turnovers, or like sometimes the tenants don't pay or whatever, and like just the condition of the houses are not as nice. Now I want to get into something that's a little bit less cash flow, but maybe higher appreciation, and also like just like less headache. I feel like I went through that phase myself when I first started, and a lot of investors I know started like exact same way. And then as you level up as an investor, your goals shift, or like your resources like expand. So like you're always kind of like moving into like the new direction or the new opportunities.
Yeah, and so now with the new properties, right? We showed him the benefits of the new properties because it's brand new builds. So what that means is he's probably not going to have
capex, no maintenance like issues, right? So
basically for 5 years, right? I would say I tell him, hey, for 5 years you're probably not going to have any big expense. A lot of this has either material guarantees or the contractors have guarantees.
It'll probably go up in value over the next 5 years as well too, right? Like
So on these new builds, we targeted properties where there's a new construction going on everywhere. So we're actually riding that wave of appreciation. So we're actually forcing the appreciation in these neighborhoods because we're targeting AB neighborhoods now.
Yeah. And so like in 5 years, he'll exit. He won't have any like mechanical issues. Probably sell for like a big profit on the appreciation side. Have a higher class tenant paying the whole time, and then it's like win-win for everybody. So.
Yeah, and the higher quality of tenants, right? Like you mentioned. And then actually it's also a huge benefit for their taxes. So the way we structured his business is him and his wife are, partners in an LLC.
Okay.
And their tax guys, because they do so much real estate, they say, hey, we can take advantage of that. And now it opens up the door for a lot of these advanced tax strategies that may not be available when you just have one property.
Yeah.
So because these new builds, right, are brand new material, if we do like a cost segregation,
there's
they're getting the top
cost
dollar.
really,
They're getting top
like
dollar
Yeah.
for all the depreciation on the materials. So that's the next step. And to add on another layer to that is we're actually going to use a lot of these tax deductions that we're banking to do some Roth conversion. So we're doing fractional Roth conversions on his IRAs. So now we're building tax-free income for the future, but we're using real estate today to do it.
I love how like everything is connected together. Whenever like you're merging the world of, let's say, like budgeting, personal finance, right? You got to start with making sure you have positive cash flow with your personal expenses. Now you're doing some debt pay down with some HELOCs. You're buying you have your primary, you're buying a rental here, you're leveraging 1031 exchange into out of state. Now you're doing tax savings. I mean, there's just so much, and then now Roth IRA conversions. There's so many pieces that are like so helpful. And like if you take this one piece by itself, it's good, right? But if you merge them together, they're so synergistic where each piece feeds the other piece, and like they all help each other to like the 5 pieces together are worth like 10, just because like they're so like interconnected with each other.
Yeah, like if you just did one strategy, you're right, you're getting a good return. But I think when you combine it, you almost 10x the returns when you start seeing all the interconnected pieces. And like, and actually because his LLC just made 2 years, we actually hit the point where now we can get business lending. Yeah. So now I'm showing him, going forward, everything we're going to buy is through your business. Yeah, so we're going to keep your personal separate for asset protection. But also, if you decide you want to upgrade again, all these properties are on your business side. It's not going to show up on your personal credit. It's not going to show up against your debt ratio. And now we can really save on tax, even if you just stayed in your property. So what's great is, as the economy changes, we pivot and we find new trends and we can, be fluid with it,
So to contrast that, this guy sounds like a rock star, and like it's good to have you as a mentor to kind of guide him through the process. But what does like a bad student look like? What's somebody who like takes your course and like nothing happens? Like tell me like what, someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are students that, they come to a class, they get excited, but life happens, right? And so sometimes they get disconnected, right? Yeah. And you lose that motivation. So it's often the person themselves, right? That there's self-doubt that creeps in. There's too much information and analysis,
it's overwhelming or something.
Analysis by paralysis, right? You hear that a lot. It's like, there's so many things going on. Like, I want to do one thing, but I'm getting, advice from different things. So that's usually the case. Is most of the people we sign up as clients are open-minded. That's what we're looking for, open-minded people, ready to learn, ready to get stuff started. But, things happen. But we always say, if you're a client, contact our office. We have client services. It doesn't matter. Whenever time you're ready, let us know. So. And
how long is a typical like contract with you guys? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 6 months? What does it look like?
Yeah. So we previously had like a lifetime program, but the downside of the lifetime is sometimes you lose that motivation, right? Because I can do it anytime I want. Yeah. Versus if I say, hey, you got a 1 year program. Yeah. Or like 1 month program. That would really light a fire under somebody's butt. Exactly. I mean, honestly, like I feel like having like shorter timelines oftentimes like, because then there's this rule, I forgot who coined it, was basically like the work expands to like the timeline that you give it. So like let's say you got like a paper that's due in like a month, you're gonna wait till like the last week and it's gonna take you the full month to do it, right? Yeah. If the paper's due in 2 days, you'll just figure out a way to do it. And then sometimes like the paper's due in a month, you're like 2 days before, you're like, oh crap, I gotta finish this. Yeah. Somehow you get it done in 2 days, what was supposed to take a month, So just giving yourself like timelines, so even for your clients, like as opposed to having like a year membership, let's just say, hey, I'm just going, it's 1 month and whatever you get in from here. I mean, I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm just saying like having timelines like that is really like beneficial or helpful for some people sometimes. Yeah, exactly. And we've noticed that. Like when someone's on the 1 year program, we say, look, we're in a tight time frame. We're ready to get stuff going. Let's schedule the next meeting. Here's your homework that you have to do.
Yeah.
Here's the.
So you guys give people homework
We give
and then
homework,
workshop, which
yes.
I mean, that's so helpful. You know, like a lot of programs that I go to or like I like join, a lot of times it's like, it's up to the person. It's always up to the person to put in the work.
Yeah.
But then like a lot of times there's not a clear game plan. It's like, here's some information, here's some knowledge, then you go and play. But whenever somebody can handhold you, it's like, here's some homework. I want you to finish this by this date, and this is what we're gonna do. It's just a lot more. I feel like digestible than like just information. You know.
Yeah, I mean, time is money, right? So my time is precious, so is their time. So I'm like, look, you know, we're not here to have a meeting and twiddle our thumbs. It's I like to put actionable items in place. So I give a list of, I need these documents for the next meeting. This is the topic that we're going to cover. Please have this ahead of time. If you don't have this ahead of time, then let's reschedule. That I find that really gets the fire under them. Yeah, so that's our program. We have like 1 year, or we have like a 4-year program now where it's like, hey, I want to make sure I have a coach. I want to make sure I have a soundboard. I want to make sure that I can call somebody when something happens or a deal comes up. We're like, yeah, we can get on a Zoom. Like, I'm able to, nowadays with Zoom, you can get on a meeting pretty much almost same day or next day pretty quick.
So tell us though, you also flip houses on the side. You've done a bunch of different house flips here in Hawaii. And you've got one flip where you guys bought a house. You actually uprooted the entire house and like drove it to like another location or something. Like,
yeah, so this is like usually the story that people want to hear is like, what's the craziest story you have? I was like, okay, well, I've done several flips right here in Oahu. One flip I did was a condo in like Waipahu, right?
Don't tell me, so you didn't move the whole condo, right?
No. This is context to the story, right? Okay. So I flipped a condo in like Waipahu, right? Made some money. And then the previous owner, who was a contractor, said, hey, I got an idea for you. I was like, okay, I'm open. He said, hey, look, I've met this one person or his client, whoever it was to him, and said he's trying to get rid of these 2 dwellings on his house. This is property in Lanikai. This is a wealthy guy. Says, hey, I want to build a brand new house, but I got these 2 old dwellings. He had the idea of rather than pay demo, why don't I sell it to somebody? So he said, hey, we can buy these houses for 10 grand. It's like 2 dwellings. So it was a single family house and a cottage. He said you can buy it for 10 grand, and he mentioned that he's done a house move before. I was like, wait, a house move? I've seen it on TV before, but can you do it here? He goes, yeah, there's a moving company that moves houses. So I'm like, okay, sounds interesting.
How big are these houses, by the way?
I want to say the single family house was like a 3-1. I wish I remembered, but I think it was like 800 square feet.
800 square feet.
And then the cottage, I want to say was like 300 square feet. You know what I mean? So he said, I've done a house move before, but it wasn't like recent, right? But he said he's done it before. He has experience. All I have to do is go buy a vacant lot to move it to. So I'm like, okay, sounds not as simple as it sounds. I'm like, okay. So we ran the numbers and did the projection. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So you know what? Let me raise funds and let me go buy a vacant lot. So I bought a vacant lot.
Where did you buy the lot at?
I bought a vacant lot in Ka'ava.
Okay.
And it was a CPR lot. So I learned what a CPR lot was. I heard of it, but once you get to the details, the CPR lot has certain
like restrictions. And stuff, right? So would you guys have to have like the HOA or like the board to actually allow you to put a house there or like get permission?
Yeah, so because it was CPR lot, there was only one other unit on there.
So it's a two unit CPR.
Yeah, exactly. And they were already building something. So according to the CPR rules, there could only be a total of 5 bedrooms on the total CPR lot. So they already were building 3, so I could only have a 2-bedroom. Okay. So I was like,
but you have a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and a cottage was a 1-1?
Yeah, it was just basically like almost like a studio.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, how's this gonna work? Well, we talked with the architect, and he said, what we can do is we can make it a 2-bedroom, connect the 2 properties together, but make one almost like a big study, or we can knock down walls to make just bigger space. Yeah,
like a larger living room or something.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. So we reviewed it for a while, looked at it, I was like, you know what? It sounds interesting. It should make money. If not, it's still a good story. So we went forward with the deal. So this is where like I share this story because it didn't go as planned, and that's real estate in general, right? You try to plan as much as you can, but things happen. So, so we have to get 3 permits. One for the move from A second permit was the move to.
Okay.
And the third permit was the repair permit to put it all together.
Okay.
Right? So we had to get 3 permits. So when it was ready to move it, they had to move the dwellings from Lanikai to Ka'ava. So what they had to do was cut it in pieces.
Cut the house in pieces.
Yes.
Okay.
So
was it just like one? Because then like it's like one
pretty
house,
clean
right?
cut.
Is it just like one straight down the middle, or like
Yeah.
how, like
I want to say the cottage was left
by
in
itself?
one.
Okay.
The single family house, I want to say they cut it into 4 pieces.
4 pieces. Okay.
Yeah, I want to say it was 4.
And like, are they just taking like a chainsaw down the middle? Because like the structure beams, like,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the roof. I'm like,
So,
like, how's that?
I kind of left that to the contractor. I said,
Okay.
hey, whatever. You said you have experience. So how they cut it was whatever way they cut it.
Do
But
you have
yeah, it
pictures
was
of
it
it?
was
I gotta
pretty
see- do
it
you
was
have
pretty
pictures of
clean.
this?
It was pretty much
Okay,
down the
okay.
middle, down the beam.
Okay.
Pretty much. And so what they did was they cut it into pieces. They put it on a trailer.
Okay.
And they moved it. They usually did it like early in the morning, like maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay,
'cause
I mean less
less
traffic,
less
right?
traffic.
But I mean that's gnarly though. So I mean like you're literally taking a whole house, chopping up the pieces, and
Yeah.
moving to like another. And then what about like the plumbing? Like like what was it? What kind of foundation was it? Was
Well,
it
the good thing it was like
Okay.
above
Post and pier?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, post
so
and
the
pier.
plumbing was underneath, right?
Okay.
So super easy to get to. So yeah, that's how they did it. Just disconnected it, cut it, moved it in 4 pieces, and then the moving company would put temporary posts there, like this made of wood and
in
stuff.
the what do you mean post?
So it had to be elevated, right? So they would
Okay.
put
Oh, okay,
temporary
okay,
like
okay.
wood. It looks almost like wooden boxes, but not
Okay,
really,
okay.
right? So
On top of the trucks, you mean the moving truck?
Oh no! When they on the new
the new
land,
lot.
the new
Okay,
lot, yeah,
okay.
they would put it there. They would move the properties on the
Okay,
truck.
so I mean like there's basically boxes to put the house on,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then you're gonna connect all like the posts and piers and
Yeah.
everything like afterwards. But,
So it was just temporary.
Yeah.
So then they would drop it on there in 4 different pieces,
Mm-hmm.
however way the architect designed it, and they put it as close as possible. But then we couldn't complete the renovation until the repair permit was done.
okay, so you're waiting for the repair permit to be like I guess approved
Yeah.
by the DPP.
Exactly, and that's where the issues come in. I'm sure you have stories. I'm sure everyone here has stories about the DPP, right? But yeah, it took a while to get that permit approved.
How long did it take for this?
So this is where having a good team comes into place, right? You got to have a good architect and a good contractor and following up. So yeah, it took almost 2 years to get that thing approved.
Really, dude?
Yeah.
So like you moved the house,
Yeah.
and you're just sitting there for 2 years to
Pretty
to-
much.
That's so.
And we would just put a
insane.
tarp over
That's
it.
so,
And
dude, that's insane.
yeah, that's why I love sharing this story because it has wins
Yeah,
and
yeah,
losses
yeah.
and we learn
So I
from
mean,
this.
like, you guys, cut the house up, chop it up, put it on a trailer. 2 a.m. Were you driving? Did you watch and follow it?
I wasn't even there. I think I was on a trip, and
Okay.
he said he's taking care of it.
Okay.
So I was like, okay,
so
sure.
you used to close it. You don't want to like even look and see what because what if it falls off, they
Yeah,
get into
yeah,
an accident.
yeah.
Like there's so many
So-
things that could go wrong, right?
But luckily, that was pretty.
that was the easy part.
That was probably
So-
the easiest part. Just
So
waiting.
you
on
got
everything.
it. You got it to the new lot, and it's on just basically on like boxes or wooden boxes or whatever. And then now you're waiting 2 years
For the
before you
permit.
can actually start putting this thing together.
Yeah.
But during that time, I mean, like squatters or like rain. I mean, like there's like the elements.
Yeah.
I mean, like just I feel like things are gonna. And now there's like these extra holes and stuff like that
Yeah.
because the house is not like.
Yeah.
It's not put together yet, right?
Yeah. So if you went there, it's pretty gnarly if you actually went into it. But yeah, like you could not go into it because of the stuff. But yeah, once the permit got approved.
Okay. 2 years later.
2 years later, then what they had to do, this is interesting, right? They built the actual posts, the permanent
okay,
posts,
okay.
it was a concrete post,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They built it underneath, okay, up to a point. And then the moving company had to jack up the property again,
Yeah.
take out the temporary ones, and
Okay.
then drop it on
Okay, onto the post, yeah.
the permanent post. So I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then reconnect the house and then attach all the plumbing and fix the roof and all that stuff. But a lot of the stuff inside the house was kept intact.
Oh, okay.
And then we just had to replace like appliances and put in new windows and just freshen it up. But that was a very interesting deal.
So in retrospect, like the cost of like buying the house, moving it, and then just like sitting on it would have been easier if you just built a brand new house. Do you think?
It might have been, but it's an interesting story. Not very. I think.
I mean, the
say
reason why I
very-
asked that is because we come across houses. I feel like all the time where
Yeah.
the owner does not want the house anymore, and I feel like it'd be very easy for us to buy just the house and move it to somewhere else.
Yeah.
But if it's gonna be like I mean, I don't just, you're weighing the cost of what is like
Yeah.
the cost of like a brand new house build or just like trying to move in an old existing house, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if the permit didn't take so long, I think it is actually more cost effective
Yeah,
because you figure the materials to build a brand new house
Yeah,
from
yeah.
scratch, right? Even though we did have to pay rehab to get it connected, but at $10,000, you know what I mean? So, and then the cost of moving it, I think was like 40,000.
Okay.
So there's that cost, and then the holding cost. So everything was
Yeah.
pretty much private money.
Okay.
But luckily, I was able to pay them after the sale. But we did make a profit. I paid off all my private lenders, and
Nice.
got a good story to tell. And we got a family in there. So it was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
my thing is, hey, it was a vacant lot. It was overgrown. Now we've added a family there, and now the value of the neighborhood went up because a new sale over there, right? So,
Awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great story. I mean, I'm just wondering because I would love to do something like that one day, or just build a vacant house, pick it up,
Yeah.
and just like with a trailer and move it to like somewhere else, and then let's replant it almost. And so-
Yeah. I think if you have a good team, I think, in retrospect, if I had just better team or, then I think it's possible. I would say I think the permitting process was
Yeah.
pretty much the hardest part. So,
So have you always been in real estate, or was like that? How did you actually get started with like knowing all this, like the HELOCs, like the financial education, like the real estate? Where did you begin with, and how did you actually get started?
okay, great. So before I started working at Sweep as a cash flow coach, I was actually in the IT field.
Okay, IT,
Yeah.
like the software or like the
more
IT?
like just fixing
Okay,
computers,
okay.
And then stuff like that. I went to school for that, and I finally got into the industry.
I feel like there are a lot of engineers as real estate investors, just because it's so logical. Like,
Yeah.
like it's such a numbers game. It makes sense just from like a practical, logical standpoint. So a lot of engineers, they can wrap their heads around this. Okay, I buy it for 50,000, I sell it for 100. It makes sense. Like, so.
Yeah, it's really a numbers game, and I like that problem solving game too, right?
Yeah.
So I've always kind of been that like
And that's the thing too about with like tech guys, whether it's IT or software, is really your job is problem solving. You're just trying to like, hey, where's the problem? Where's it broken? And you're trying to troubleshoot it, right? The exact same thing with real estate investing is like, hey, what's the problem we're trying to solve? How can we solve it? And how can we like help benefit everybody and make a little bit of money in the process, So.
Yeah. And actually, then the next step is how do I bring people up with me, right? How do I teach what I learned? So
Yeah.
so I would say when I was that was kind of before I started working at Sweep, and then I would say my real estate journey starts with my wife. So
Shout out to the wife.
Shout out to the wife. So in 2008,
That's right after the crash or right during the crash.
Yeah, or exactly. So in 2008, right before the crash, right? So I bought my first property in 2008, but actually it goes back to my wife because we were living at my dad's house rent free. So I'm like, hey, I got no rent payments. We're saving money. I had my daughter at the time. She was like 1 year old, and she's like, hey, we got to go buy a property. I'm like, I'm scared. I'm hesitant because I'm like I don't have.
You don't know anything.
I got rid of all my
money.
debt.
Yeah,
and I'm like, but she
the
could.
first house is always the most scary. I think like just like it's for anybody who's listening to this is like. The first house is always the hardest to do, whether it's like your primary or whether it's an investment. It's just the hardest because there's so much that you don't know. But having somebody to walk alongside you, whether it's a good realtor or a coach, can help you so much with the process, I feel like.
Yeah, and like I said, I was the one that was hesitant because I didn't know real estate. I didn't know this kind of, like I said, I'm in my own world. But she convinced me and said, hey, no, we got to because, you buy this, you get equity and you get tax savings. I'm like, okay, I guess. So we were able to buy our first property. Luckily, I bought in a place with zero down payment.
Okay.
So it was a USDA loan. So I was like, we had to pay a little bit of closing costs. But, the realtor was helpful. The loan people were helpful. But again, I never took a class about buying a house. I just kind of went with the flow.
Yeah.
But again, I give her, all the credit. She convinced me to buy our first property, and we kind of went from there. And then shortly after that, in like 2011, someone invited me to a Sweep presentation. I said, I'll go check it out. And then I started learning, wow, I didn't know how interest works really. I just paid my mortgage, and then I didn't know how you could pay it off quickly. So I actually became a client first, signed up, had a coach teach me how to pay it off, and he said, go get a line of credit. I was like, I don't have equity. No, go get a personal line of credit. Like, oh, okay. So my first line of credit was a $10,000 personal line of credit. So I started there, paid off debt, started chunking it to build equity. And then once I had equity in there, my wife said, oh, it's time to buy the next house. I'm like, again, there's hesitation.
You were to go get her, man. I love it.
So there's another hesitation. I'm like, wait a minute. I just got our payment really well.
What does your wife do for a living?
She works for the state.
Okay.
So
Any real estate background?
No,
at all? So
She just,
she had the vision.
She had the vision. You're right. And I just was like, well, I'm comfortable with our payment now. Why would we go take on another house payment? And then, our family grew. So I had my son and I'm like, yeah, we do need another place. So, I was able to, everything that I learned through Sweep, I pulled the equity on my first house, down payment for the second house, moved into there. And then that's how I got my first rental property. It was my first property. So
I feel like a lot of people start that way where like, especially in Hawaii, where you buy a house and like to live in, and then like a few years later, you're like, hey, we need to upgrade or we want to move somewhere else. And so like you take the equity that you gained over the last few years, use it as a down payment for your next house. And then now you have this rental that's like also cash, like growing and building your net worth this way. And then like you do it over and over and over. And so a lot of times you start with the condo for like 200,000 or whatever like that thing is, and you get a little bigger, 400. Then eventually you move into the Kahala mansion, but it all started with like that first house that kind of snowballed into that final one. I actually had a buddy, I think he took your guys' program and he started out with like a little condo, then he bought another condo and then a house. Now he lives in Park Lane. I don't know, like that $5 million house is stupid in Park Lane, but like just using the exact same strategy that you guys teach.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell people, I learned from my own lessons. You just got to get into the game, right? The sports analogy is you miss every shot that you don't take. So if you're not into the game, just get into there, right? Whether this be a small property here or just like a 1-bedroom, just get going, So that's how I got my first rental property. And then once I got my rental property, I was like, whoa, it's making money. I actually started attending like other classes, like attending a tax class, a seminar. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I created, let me go create an LLC from what I learned from that class. And I started getting to tax strategy. And then I was like, you know what? This rental property is making me money today, right? It's saving me on taxes. It's also increasing my net worth because the value is going up. And I practically got it with zero down. So why don't I just focus my time on real estate investing? So I actually signed up for like real estate investing courses, dabbled in a couple of things.
Okay.
And I really focused on, let me just get into fix and flip. And then the first fix and flip, always the hardest, like you said. Spent hours analyzing it, going back and forth. I'm going, am I trying to talk myself out of this deal? The numbers make sense. Why am I talking myself out of it? So I said, you know what? Let's just go into it.
Pull the trigger.
Did a simple condo, right? Not too much expenses. Was able to apply a lot of the strategies like private money, worked with a wholesaler, did all that.
Did you guys end up making money on this guy?
Yes. So the first deal, we made money on our first deal.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the main thing. As long as like if you break even or make money in the first deal, that's a huge win.
Yeah. And it got the fire going and said, let's just keep this momentum going. So I've done several flips since then. And now my thing is, trying to share the knowledge with people, share the wins and losses, right? That yes, you can make and lose money. And I think that sharing stories about losing money is actually even more valuable for some people.
We have a lot of successful people on this podcast. People are like, there's one guy who literally made like $1 million like on a single deal. But then like there's also a guy who lost close to $1 million in a single deal. And to me, like the interesting stories that I don't know if it's just human nature. You like looking at drama or like car wrecks, whatever. Just the losses I feel are so much more beneficial for learning and for like growing, like me personally, than the wins,
Yeah, and so that's where I'm at right now. Is I'm actually still looking for deals, but I'm actually trying to do also some fix and flip training, like very simple training, just to go, look, guys, if you're gonna get into fix and flips, these are the fundamental things you need to learn. It's gonna take way more time than this hour class that I'm doing. So what I'm trying to do is more do events, like how you guys are doing meetups, real deal tours. So that people come in, we have the resources come, they can ask questions, we can share stories, wins and losses.
Have you guys ever lost money on a deal before?
Well, not on a real estate deal. Okay. The one thing that I lost actually a significant amount of money was I trusted somebody and I put it into some sort of deal that wasn't...
What kind of deal was it?
It was more like a deal where you would say you had some money and then you would leverage the money and get access to even more money or something like that. But it turns out that the person that was running the deal was not up and up. Yeah. So I did lose money there. So I learned my lesson that I don't get into deals now where I don't have some level of control. Right. That's where I knew that it didn't work because I lost control on that
Yeah.
deal. I put my faith in somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, do you think like, because I mean, I see what you're saying where you always want to have control, but there's a lot of times where like you're really trusting the operator to make sure that they're holding their end of the bargain. I feel like there's two things you need from a good operator is they have to have a track record of experience of success, and they have to have like a good moral compass. Because like if you're missing either one, that's when you can get into trouble, right? So let's say they have the perfect moral compass, they want to do the right thing, but then like they don't have the track record of success and they make mistakes and they lose money. Now they can't pay you back because they don't have the resources to do that. Or let's say on the other hand, let's say they have like the track record, but let's say they're doing some shady tactics where they're actually making money, but then now they're not giving you what you deserve. And so like making sure that you have both sides of that in an operator I think is super important whenever you're entrusting an investment in somebody else.
Exactly. So what I'm working with my fix and flip guys, and I'm trying to teach fix and flips, and they're sending me deals and like, hey, look, what do you think about this? I'm going, no, we actually got to get it at this price. All right, and they go,
so you're overseeing to make sure the deal is going to make sense because on your end, whenever you're going to bring partners or money into it, you want to make sure that I'm basically like the guardrails to make sure that this deal is going to happen and happen correctly.
Yeah, because some of these people that I'm working with, you know, this is like their first flip, right? And so I said, look, the reason why I'm running it this way, I'm running it as a 12-month hold. I'm running this with this much reserve. Why I'm inflating your rehab, while I'm deflating your ARV.
It's experience, right?
Yeah, it's experience. It's because if you've never lost money, you'll take risk all the time. Until you've lost money, you start to go, wait. You know, let me reevaluate. Let me put in some guardrails for.
You know what's really
risk.
sad is a lot of guys. I've seen this like happen like way too many times than it should. But a lot of guys' first deal is their last deal because like they get into it excited and hyped up, and then they run their numbers incorrect. It's always running your numbers incorrectly. If you run your numbers correctly, you can like overcome a lot of other mistakes. But if you run your numbers incorrectly, that's a big mistake that's very hard to overcome. You know, sometimes like the economy or like a little bit of luck here and there can kind of boost you and overcome that. But a lot of times the reason why guys lose money on their first deal is because, like you said, they just ran their ARV or their rehab or the holding costs incorrectly.
Yeah, and I've been saved by, like I said, the market shifts, right? Like holding on to a property long enough, the market shifted and the values went up. Luckily, I made money, but currently,
but you don't want to bank on that, right? So
yeah, exactly. So I was lucky on deals, but nowadays there's a lot of moving pieces now, right? With interest rates, with the market shifting, all these things that if you don't run it. If you don't have your risk tolerance and you don't have your reserves in place, then you could be caught, on the wrong side of the deal, right? So, but yes, I actually run things a little bit more conservative than I used to do years ago because of life lessons. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good too. The thing is, like, whenever you have just like, let's say like one project only or like a couple, you have to be more conservative than let's say you have multiple, because if you have just one, then like if it loses money, then like you have like no reserves to kind of like to fall back on. But if you have like a track record of like making money, now you can take a little bit more risk on this one just because like these other ones are already going to be winners. Like so I think whenever you're just starting out, especially if you don't have like a big like cash reserves or like and mom and dad to kind of like bail you out of trouble, like you got to be very conservative on when you're running your numbers on your deals.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that point. If it's just one property, run it conservative. But yeah, if you have like 10 property, 10 deals,
as long as you
deals,
have a track record of success, right? Like these will probably make money already. Then like now you can every so often like you do 9 like conservative and you can take one risky one, right? Because like, hey, like this is like I think because a lot of times in Hawaii is really hard because our ARVs or our after repair values are wide ranges. Like it could be, I could sell this house for $1 million or I might sell it for 1.5. Like literally, like those are sometimes like our ranges. Like we don't know what we're gonna sell it for, and so the upside could be huge, but also could be a downside. And so sometimes when you're taking a risky project like that, you got to make sure that you have like the reserves to stomach in case it does sell for like a lot less than you expected.
Yeah, exactly. And have your exit strategies, right? Have multiple exit strategies. If this happens, can I pivot? Can I pivot? Can I pivot? Right? And if your only strategy is is the flip, well, what happens if your hard money loan goes past 1 year? Have you talked about the lender with that? And all these things. So. Yeah.
So I mean, like you coach a lot of people, and one of the things I really like to get or talk about with coaches is like you have a very unique perspective on what makes people successful or not successful? You know, because like you coach like, let's say like 100 people, you get to see like out of like a pool of 100 people, there's like 20 people who are crushing it. Let's say 50 people who are just kind of like getting by, like 20 people who are kind of like sucking, and like 10 people who are just like do absolutely nothing or going backwards, you know? And so you have such a unique perspective on seeing like a bigger, like the broader view of things. Like in your like opinion or your experience, what makes a successful investor or like student and somebody who's not?
Yeah, I mean, I think a successful investor is someone that's, always looking to learn, that's always open to new ideas, and that's looking to, collaborate, right? So for me, I'm at the point where I don't want to be 100% control of the deal. I'd rather partner with the right people. And because now it's like if I put 100% into the deal and this is only me, that's 100% of my time, right?
Yeah.
Versus if I had 3 or 4 people, we add up all our time, then we have 24 hours in a day to work on a deal versus, a normal person doesn't, right?
Plus, too, you get to like specialize in what you're really good at, right? Because everybody has like their own strengths. One guy's really good at, let's say, raising money. One guy's really good at construction. One guy's really good at finding deals. Whatever it is, like if you can just focus in one lane, you're way more productive than if you have to kind of like scatter like your mental things across multiple avenues.
Yeah, exactly. And so like one of the meetups we had was, hey, let's everybody share what they do, share your strength, and share not necessarily your weakness, but what are your improvement opportunities, right? And we say, okay, well, let's start with working on the things you're good at, but let's start tackling those things that you have, a deficiency in, right? What resource can we provide you to get to that point? So with clients that I work with, it's the same thing, right? They have strengths, right? Their strengths might not be numbers, but their strengths might be, hey, I'm really good at taking advice. I'm really good at taking notes. You tell me something to do, I'll do it. Whereas some is like, hey, I'm really bad at following up, so you just gotta email me 5 times. And I'm like, okay, just letting you know, I will if you said that's what you need, right? Or I'm a visual person, I need something, a visual, or someone's like, I want everything digital, right? So that's the conversation we have in the first initial meeting, and I can get a pretty good feel for most people and start honing in on what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then we just kind of build off of that. So I think it's strength in numbers, right? So I'd rather just meet 100 people. There's going to be, right, the buckets for like, they're go-getters. They're kind of like, the other ones are kind of slowly moving, and some just like really like, you know what, it's going to take me a while. But either way, we'll get them there, and that's why we love sharing success stories. They'll find somebody that's, hey, that person started when I did, but now they're doing that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's also inspiring when you get around guys like you both started at the same time, and then like one guy shoots up way fast. You're like, how did that guy do it? And like you're inspired, like you kind of want to follow in his footsteps because it's inspiring, right? And so just I think having like other peers who you're working alongside with, just you get to kind of see what the other people's journeys are. And whenever you have a guy who's kind of shooting off, you're just trying to figure out how did they do that and how can I replicate that success.
Yeah, exactly. So I think duplication is, a form of flattery. Like I'm copying what you're doing because you're doing it well. So I'm all about that, right? Like a lot of the stuff we teach, we didn't invent. We're just saying, well, they're successful with it. Follow what the successful people do. It's almost as simple as that.
That's the thing too about I think finances and real estate is there's very rarely like something brand new. It's pretty much usually like something's existing that somebody's just doing really well, and we're just like repeating the process. Like real estate has been around since the beginning of civilization, right? I mean, like, or for at least very early, right? And so it's nothing like that's like groundbreaking. It's like, hey, properties go up in value over time. Like people need to rent. There's some kind of exchange of value and this. And so like, it's like the basic principles is something that's like over generations has built a lot of people a lot of wealth. And in the future generations, it's going to continue to build a lot of people a lot of wealth. So why not be a part of that ecosystem or that pool where we know that there's going to be money or wealth generated?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So real estate is fundamental, right? We all need shelter, right? It's just, there's so many ways you can do real estate, right? If you told me, hey, I do real estate investing. It's like, what does that mean? I do this. I'm like, okay, what does that mean, right?
There's like Airbnb, there's like there's like long-term rentals, there's flipping, there's there's so many things. There's a coaching aspect of it. There's a lot of different ways that you can like be in the real estate space, but also like add value to a community.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why, we're always open to learning new strategies. And then when we do learn something, we do our research, and then we're like, okay, let's get it out to the masses, right?
What do you think is like your strength as an investor? Like what's your biggest thing that you provide whenever you're in a deal?
Yeah, I think mine's is mostly like running numbers, like you said, from the IT background, you know, very analytical. I love Excel. Like most of my day is spent in Excel sheets because I'm working with clients.
God bless you, man. Like I mean, like I came from a software background, but as much as I can avoid Excel, I try to avoid it just because I'm not like a spreadsheet guy, you know. But I mean, like it's part of like you have to do it, especially when you're first starting. But like if I can just never see an Excel spreadsheet again, I'd be like so happy.
Yeah. So yeah, I just love Excel. I mean, it makes me look smarter, right? And you know, but yeah, I think running numbers is probably one of my strengths, and I think my second strength is taking something that's complex and going, how can I simplify it, and how can I take this complex strategy? I won't say dumb it down, but I'm gonna say, how do I make it digestible for that particular client I'm working with, right? And speak their language. So that's why I like to actually do classes. So I do a lot of PowerPoint classes, taking, again, like say I took a tax strategy. Oh, maybe I can get a visual to represent that, or a story which clicks better than just saying, here's the tax law.
I love that. I mean, like it can really, that's what makes the sign of a good teacher. It's like not their breadth of knowledge, is how can they take this knowledge that they know and then translate it into a digestible chunks for somebody else to consume. And like, you know, the whole thing, I think there's somebody talked about this, about like having a course or mentorship, right? It's like some guys are like, my course has so much information, like I have like so much value, right? But it's so long and it's so undigestible, but there's like 100 hours worth of value in this thing, right? Another guy's like, dude, I've got like 10 hours worth of value, but then like value per minute is packed. So like when it's digestible, I can consume it, I can actually use it and apply it. It's so much more valuable to me than just having like it like available. And so I think that the term was, what's more important than minutes of value is value per minute. So like more than having a lot of value is how much value can you pack in a short period of time. And I think the world is changing in this direction where like TikTok, Instagram is like, if you just give them like a ton of knowledge, they're like, this is boring, I'm gonna go to sleep. But if you pack like that 30 seconds full of knowledge, then like that's so much more value to people, just to be able to consume and absorb the knowledge.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we actually do like hour-long webinars, but sometimes when I just cut it up into like a short or something, then people go, oh, I like that video. You said, well, you didn't watch the whole 1 hour? I was like, no, I watched the short, but I got it. I was like, okay, that makes sense now, right? So, that's the way things are going, right? So
just attention spans, right? People just we don't have like the attention span to like or the patience to watch like an hour. Now we're like, give it to me in like 3 minutes, or like give it to me in 30 seconds, or like I'm scrolling on to the next guy.
So I think that's a skill, and I've been doing this for over 13 years. So I used to be doing a lot of analytical presentations, and it's not resonating. Now I have to kind of make it like, hey, let's make it personal. Here's a story about it. Here's pictures, you know. But that's one of my strengths, I think, is discerning information and making it, like I said, digestible for people.
That's super good. I mean, I might have to hit you up after this. I gotta give like a speech or presentation like next week. So I mean, I'm trying to figure out like how to take this complex subject and just make it more digestible. So maybe we gotta chat offline and just get some of your thoughts or ideas on this. And so
yeah, perfect. Yeah. So again, it's all about connecting with the right people, finding out strengths, right? So I think that's the way to go.
So I mean, like just like to wrap up the interview, if you have one piece of advice for anybody who's just starting out or who wants to get involved, whether it's like learning more about finances, or they want to pay down their house in like 7 years, or they want to get started in real estate investing, what piece of advice would you give to this person?
Yeah, I mean, just gravitate to the people that are doing it, right? Because like I said, anybody can take something on YouTube and say, hey, I'm an expert at it. I'm like, okay, well, show me the track record, right? So go seek out people that have a track record. Seek out the person that you want to be, right? If that person is doing fix and flip, then go to that fix and flip person's meeting. Or, hey, that person's been paying off property. Why don't I learn how to do that? And so that's why we like to do classes and just say, look, we run the gamut from debt reduction to retiring, sooner, or buying real estate. So, I mean, our classes are free. Some people like to come to the group classes than sitting on one-on-one. I
like group classes personally. You can hide the back.
You can kind of go like this. I can be observant. I can be a fly on the wall and kind of see how it goes. Then once I get a feel for like, hey, this person knows their stuff, right? They're a good communicator. They're not pushing sales. They're like, hey, we want to help people. So that's always the vibe we try to put out there. But I think if you sit down with any of our coaches, you'll get that vibe, and we all just want to help people. But I would say that's usually the case. Some people do meet me one-on-one directly. I say, hey, you want to just go get a coffee? You know, and whatever it takes. But yeah, we just love sharing information. But that'll be the first thing: is seek out the people that are giving value, and gravitate to those people.
If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so go to sweepstrategies.com. I got some cool videos on there, and then on there there's an events button. Then you can see all our upcoming classes and workshops that we're doing for free throughout the month.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah.
Connect again soon.
Yeah.